Good evening, ballers. Welcome to the 12th episode of a Stepack. That's right, 12. Here, my main man, Jacob Moses, and our
Sir.
special guest, Deep Thirds Football Life Podcast, Randy Hammond. How you fellas doing this evening?
I am good, man. I'm ready to go, but I had to do this because Randy had to be on here for me to do it. We got a co-host on town this episode, and his name is Reggie Hammond. Y'all be cool. Nah, but everything is good, bro. Everything's cool. Just quarantine. Hopefully it's not ending, but it's getting a little bit softer. Staying safe. Just working. How's everybody else doing?
So good to be back here with you guys, ready to talk about some basketball. We actually had some things to watch that made us feel like some things were a little normal. Although today was a little weird, you thought you had the space launch happening, didn't actually happen. So that was kind of a tease, but you take it day by day, and things are getting a little bit better as summer comes along here. So I think I'm in good spirits. I hope everyone is at home as well. But I think we're all a little excited to talk about the 10-part documentary that we watched in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, that was a nice little break, something to watch on TV, something to look forward to every Sunday night. We had the threads going in the group, so that was something to get everyone interactive. It was a good experience. Dealing with 80-degree weather and not still being able to play basketball, we're getting a little bit closer. It's something. See a light at the end of the tunnel.
For sure.
So a couple weeks ago, there was we had episodes 9 and 10 focused on the 98 Pacers and the 98 Jazz. Finally wrapped everything up, and we got a killer ending, I guess. Got a surprise to the last dance. I was a big fan of the Pacers. I thought they'd be the closest to knock them off. We looked at Reggie Miller, underrated superstar, lifelong Pacer, which was something to behold in the league of free agency and players moving around. I thought he was the hardest luck loser of all the stars coming up. He lost to Jordan, lost to Kobe, and I don't think he got some of LeBron's draft too. But that was a nice little battle they went through, and it was exciting. Randy, what do you think of the last couple episodes?
I liked how they focused a lot about basketball. To me, some of the earlier episodes got into some personal stuff, but these last two episodes really, to me, focused on strictly basketball. Besides a deep story about Steve Kerr, which I'm sure we'll get to later on, but these were a lot about matchups between the Bulls and Pacers, and obviously, like you said, the Bulls and the Jazz. I really like how they broke down those matchups and how physical those games were, and those battles were between those two teams. I didn't grow up watching those games. I didn't grow up getting to watch and live through those playoffs and those finals. So, obviously I know who Reggie Miller is, and I watched the tail end of his career, but to see him go toe-to-toe with Michael Jordan and get away with that shove and kind of get under his skin and not be afraid of him kind of made me appreciate him a little bit more. And obviously, I know Reggie Miller's clutch, and I know Reggie Miller has that killer instinct, and I know what he did to the Knicks. Living in New York, I've heard a lot of horror stories about what Reggie Miller did to the Knicks. But to see him go at the Bulls like that, and they probably should have won that series, and they kind of blew it. Was kind of it was just totally Bulls, right? They found a way to win those games. It was only the second Game 7 that those Bulls has ever even played. So credit to the Pacers for pushing the Bulls to that limit there. And the Jazz, to me, obviously not a dynasty, but a really well put together team and peaking at that moment. And they just happened to run into the Bulls. Are you talking about two Hall of Famers and John Stockton and Karl Malone leading them to the finals and just not having enough to stop Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and the rest of the Bulls. I mean, they were just too much for them. And they fought. They obviously were tough, and they gave it everything that they had. And I think that kind of caught the Bulls off guard a little bit. But I just love seeing those battles because, like I said, I didn't get to live through it. But I appreciate the physicality and the high level that those teams played at.
Jacob, what do you think of the last 2 episodes of the documentary?
Oh, it was really good. You know, just relive those finals moments where it was just grounded out, just grinded out kind of games, just toughness everywhere, and basically trying to knock off Jordan. That was, it's like playing a video game and he's King Koopa. You gotta, every level, you gotta go to the get to where you gotta go. It's Jordan right there. And it did show his greatness. It really did, because, you know, once again, we'll bring it back to how many championships, you know, this guy would have won, this guy, Karl Malone, Stockton, Ewing, Miller, you know, everybody probably would have had one. But just, especially the Utah and Bulls game, it's like they had the game plan to do it. And didn't they have a lead, a nice little lead towards the end where Malone got stripped? They actually had a lead.
They blew the lead there.
And they could have closed it out, and, you know, Jordan coming off the backside, Malone wasn't paying attention. Snatchies, give me that ball, and then that was pretty much it.
Well, and that's the thing, too. Like, Stockton hits the 3 to go up 1, and then whatever your opinion is on Michael Jordan after this, that is why he's, to me, the greatest player ever, is that he was an absolute killer in that moment. Like, he was not letting that game get out of his hands. No one else touched the ball. So, like, to me, it's like, yes, I understand that his team was very good and the dynasty wouldn't happen without his teammates and the coach that he had. But at that moment in time, you're down 1 with 47 seconds to go. A lot of guys crumble in that spot. He drove to the lane, made the layup, and then he did not clear out behind Malone. He didn't pay attention, stripped the ball, grabbed it, went up court, and made the infamous move on Brian Russell. And, I mean, even as soon as he made the move and pulled up, he was cash. You didn't even need to see him shoot it. Like, you knew it was going in. That, to me, that is, like, the most iconic sequence of any basketball game I have ever seen. So, like, to me, obviously, we knew it was going to end that way. But it's just cool to see that, like, I guess I didn't even realize he was the only person that touched the ball in that moment in time. But that, to me, is just ultimate killer moment right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny because I remember watching that game live. I remember watching the 97 finals live when Kerr hit the shot. I didn't remember. I think I remember the steal, but I didn't remember he never passed the ball. So, and then you look at the final shot, he even held it for a pose because he knew it was good. So it was. And I will give credit to Phil because he could have called a timeout in that situation, and he had the instinct to go, don't let them get set, you know, let Michael do his thing, like put the ball in your best player's hands and to let him be the greatest player ever. And obviously it's not a hard decision to make, but in that time period, you know, a lot of coaches would call timeout and try to set up a play. So I give a lot of credit to Phil for that. Yeah, like Dennis Rodman said, just he got the ball, get the hell out the way. That ball is going out.
Oh man, that was actually good, man. It's just
right.
It just brings you back to so many. Yeah, go ahead, Leon. Go ahead.
Oh no, my bad. I was going to say that the infamous flu game it turned out to be food poisoning. Yeah, so he said.
Now that is something nobody knew. See, that was the kind of, oh man, did that really happen? But that's crazy. That Utah, they tried to win by any means necessary. You ain't getting this. But
do you guys believe that story? Like, I mean, I know both of you are from New York. Leon, you're from, you know, the greatest place on earth with the best pizza on earth. So, like, to me, I'm from New York, but I'm from upstate New York. But I've had some of the best pizza living close and being there a bunch of times. I've been to Chicago. Really enjoy Chicago pizza. I don't know if it's pizza, but it's delicious, whatever you want to call it. I'm not doubting the pizza in Utah is bad. Okay, like I don't know what they have going on out there, but I'm not going to be the one that like questions the quality of pizza in Utah. So he might have a case. I don't know. What do you guys think? That story's legit?
Yeah.
Who knows at this point? I mean, because Jordan was, you know, as you can see throughout the whole documentary, that he was kind of a fibber. So to make himself look really good or like a hero, what else? Oh, yeah, they poisoned me, but I still not balled out. I took this game over. That was just it. That's how great I was. But you never know, man. People go through some extreme measures for their team. You know, I wouldn't do it. You know, it's not that serious. I'm not playing. You poison somebody, and that's a little bit too wild for me. But could have been hung over. Who knows? But it was good for TV.
I kind of find it hard to believe that he spit in the pizza so nobody else would eat it.
Yeah.
That's the part that I don't understand.
That
Everybody's
and like
hungry.
the fact that he said that and he said 5 people delivered him the pizza. Like, okay, what source do these pizza workers have that they knew that you were Michael Jordan?
Yeah.
You know, like I delivered pizzas for a living for 4 years. We barely had 5 people in the shop at any given time, and like we're not sending like okay, if you knew it was Michael Jordan, I could see that. Like, let us go see Michael Jordan. But if you're in a hotel, you probably can have someone order it for you, and then you could say, all right, leave it at the desk. But like you're not gonna know who it is at that point. So I don't know. As soon as he said 5 people delivered to his door, I was out on the story. Like, I don't doubt that pizza in Utah is bad, but I doubt that, Michael Jordan is telling the truth in that situation. Like, to me, he was probably drunk, right? He was probably hungover. Like, that's probably the most likely situation here.
I mean, what's there to do in Utah, right? Besides.
Yeah, he was probably playing cards. He's probably sipping on bourbon or something. And he's getting hammered, and I doubt he ate a whole pizza. No, I mean that's the most relatable thing I've heard about Michael Jordan in the whole documentary. Is that I can do that too. But and hey, I've had hangovers before. I couldn't score 38 points against my little sister, so credit to him going out there and balling out even after that. So he handled that better than I could have.
Yeah, and then I wonder like how you gonna like. Would you give him like bad cheese or bad sauce? I mean, it's just it's weird.
Who takes the time to do that?
Unless like Karl Malone's working at the pizza shop, it's Michael Jordan, Like that's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing it. And if you saw Michael Jordan lie a lot through the thing, or at least, fabricate some things. So it's hard for me just to be like, yes, he had the flu. Yes, he had the food poisoning. I think there's something else up with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. But, it makes for a good story. And, at the time, it's a legend that'll live on forever.
Yeah, and it helps that Bob Costas just ran with it and still thinks it to this day. I mean, people love that guy and swear by everything that he says. So of course they're gonna believe it.
Yeah, and Bob Costas was just the guy in the 90s. Marv Albert, they called the games like it was a movie.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that because I thought Costas was very, very much Jordan in favor of MJ. Like everything that he did, he just he straight up just called him Michael. Like he was very much pro Jordan, whereas Marv Albert just absolutely hated him. Like every time he did something, he would just use that as a reason to shit on him. Like Marv Albert, being the Knicks guy, obviously absolutely hated him. You knew that for sure.
Oh yeah, he definitely felt it. He took it personal.
Yeah. I mean, Jake, you probably lived through a lot of those Knicks Bulls matchups. I mean, did you show the same sentiment as Marv Albert?
Absolutely. Who liked Jordan? Like nobody. Like that's the thing. You lived in New York and you liked Jordan. It was kind of like I hear a lot. Oh, I was such a Jordan fan. In New York, really? The dude causes nothing but misery. Like what? I mean, you're just like when he came back. It was like a freaking. It's like a funeral. It's just like, oh, Michael Jordan coming back. Oh, shit. God damn it. It's like when you get told by your parents, you're like, okay, here we go. And you knew it. In that first game, we watched it with my grandparents, just like, damn, really? You really had to come back and do this?
That was the double nickel, right?
It's like he had it planned, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like he had it planned. Like, you know what? I'm going to come back to the Garden, and I'm going to bust their ass. That's what I'm going to do. But, oh, man, yeah, he just the pinnacle of everybody's frustration, especially in New York, was him. I mean, it wasn't even just – I even see we could beat him without Jordan. It wasn't – it was tough, but obviously we got over the hump. But, no. It was just once he was in the game, he just – and plus he loved playing the Knicks. And he'll say it to this day, whether the Garden didn't matter. He just loved playing the Knicks and killing them. That was his deal. And
I imagine it's similar to being like a fan of the AFC East with Tom Brady being around all these years.
Exactly. Yeah. 20 years of misery.
Yeah.
Thank God he's going.
Yeah.
Oh.
How much?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up hard times, but I guess I welcome that at that point.
It's all right. I mean, it's kind of like the butt fumble. You know, it's something you're never going to get over.
Yeah, self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
How much do you guys make of Jordan saying in the end that they would have came back to make a run at their 7th title, that it was the owner who decided not to bring the team back?
I don't believe it. I really don't. You know, if you wanted to come back with your team, you were that much of a leader to your squad, you could have been like, hey, Scotty, Dennis, all you guys, let's make one more run. You know, I know it feels like the last dance, but did you see what we just did? We went all the way. But for you to say, oh, it was the owner's fault. No, come on, you're Michael Jordan. You had enough power to say, guys, let's do this one more time. Hey, come on, it was bullshit. You can smell the manure from all the way over. Come on now. Come on, Mike. Come on, MJ. Stop the BS.
In my podcast prep, I did read that even when he retired after that season, he said that this was the right time for him. So it's weird that he was content with the retirement at the time, and now he's saying that he wanted to go for 7 in this.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we know that the documentary is fun with a Jordan signature on it. Like, none of this would have happened unless he approved of it, which makes this not the greatest documentary I've ever seen. It's certainly entertaining, but it's not like journalism. You know, some things have to be taken with a grain of salt. To me, do I think they could have won 7? Maybe. Do I wish they went after it? Absolutely. I think part of Jordan maybe was exhausted after going to 3 straight finals, and the fact that Phil was leaving, and you probably couldn't have changed Phil's mind. My issue is that the owner and the GM also didn't even try to go for that 7th ring. And like, if Jordan's still mad about that, I totally get that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, if Rodman and Luke Longley are aging, and so is Scottie Pippen, like, I totally get that. But you're telling me you couldn't replace Luke Longley? You know, Dennis Rodman didn't give you that much in '98 anyway. You know what I mean? Like, he was coming off the bench and kind of being a hustle guy and defender, but like, he wasn't the old Dennis Rodman at that point. Like, Luke Longley, you couldn't have found like a mid-level center and brought him in and tried to replace what he did. You would have lost Steve Kerr, but Steve Kerr probably would have been like replaceable, right? I think the hardest decision would have been Scottie Pippen, because he wanted to get paid, and he obviously wasn't himself anymore. But if you went to Scottie and said, "Hey, take a 1-year deal and let's go for 7," you probably could have got it done, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you know, considering Godzilla, he's in Vegas for missing practice, and I love the clip of him dodging the media.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was pretty hilarious.
The WCW clip too was great.
Oh,
yeah, I totally forgot all about that.
Man, like I said in the thread, you gotta have some balls to straight up. You're in the final. Hey, fuck this! I'm going to WCW. I'm gonna hang out with Hollywood. You know them.
Yeah.
That. Oh man. No, but then him running through the thing. If you saw Rookie of the Year when they chased him through the thing, that's what reminded me of. He going upstairs. He running. He getting the hell away from you. I'm like, man, that was great. Robin's a fucking goat, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
could you imagine if that happened now? Could you imagine? Social media would just explode. It would be incredible.
Oh my God.
No, I definitely wouldn't survive. I mean, you're 10 minutes late for practice. They're, you know, on your case. But you know, that just goes to show you the difference in times. I'm also really glad, which is totally out of the blue, Steve Kerr story.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't know that about his dad, but it just shows his perseverance and shows his character, which he's now head coach of the Warriors, and you can see how he's so bright and lead the team to some championships. What do you guys think of the Steve Kerr story?
It's incredibly sad. You know, like, I had no idea what happened to him, and it kind of draws a connection between him and Michael too, right? Because I mean, Michael's dad also was gunned down unexpectedly. To me, it was a very sad yet real part of the story that was very important to tell. I think it added a very real aspect of this. It also explained why Steve Kerr is so outspoken on certain political issues. it explained so much that, you know, Steve Kerr is very much someone who is an activist in the NBA world. So I had no idea that this backstory existed with him. So to me, I don't anticipate I don't expect Michael Jordan to have a connection with all of his teammates or to even respect every single person he's ever played with or against. But to me, this was a deeper connection than basketball between him and MJ that I had to imagine that they bonded over and could relate to. And it was very, very sad. And one other part of that I took away from was that the best possible coach to have for that was Phil Jackson, because Phil Jackson can handle, to me, like he's very zen, he's very calm, he's very understanding. He's never going to be a rah-rah, push you till you break your limit kind of guy. He's very much someone who's like, go get your mind right, and then, or let me help you get your mind right. Like he's very much like a therapist in that way. So I think he's very lucky to have had that guy to lean on in that difficult situation. So to me, I was an unexpected part of the show to me, but also, you know, it's very deep, and I'm glad to have learned about Steve Kerr.
Yeah, for sure. And that's just, man, I couldn't even imagine like being, you know, a young guy and then, you know, your dad's somewhere else and then, oh, you know, your dad passed away. What? Oh, he was murdered. You're just like, what? But yeah, like you said, it shows his perseverance, and him as a person, he's a tough guy. Like you can see it, like how he coaches now, like how he kind of adjusted to that role. Like he was one of the leaders on the Bulls team. Then he went to the Spurs. He was one of the guys. And then, you know, you see him slide into the coaching role. And then you see it. You see his leadership, his skills, he's articulate when he talks. I mean, he's one of the good ones that you have in the league, you know?
Yeah, it shows character, it shows perseverance, and you know, to deal with a character like MJ, you got to have all of those qualities. So I'm glad they focused finally a nice piece on a teammate, because this documentary just shitted on teammates.
Yeah.
What was your your favorite thing you took away from these episodes?
That for me, like everyone that it ended.
Sorry, I have to say that word.
No, you're absolutely right to say that. As a Knicks fan, I totally understand where you're coming from there. For me, I just enjoyed having something to look forward to every week. Given that the times that we're living in right now, there's no sports going on, and we can't enjoy you know, the live aspect of sports that make it so great. Watching a lot of old games on TV, so it's nice to get to watch something that was new, that was different. It wasn't exactly journalism. No, I mean, like I said, Michael Jordan had to have the sign off on everything here, but it was certainly entertaining. And I don't think we've ever seen a more polarizing figure in sports than Michael Jordan. Maybe Muhammad Ali. I think maybe Tiger Woods. There's some guys that are candidates, I guess. I mean, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, but he wasn't like, you know, controversial, I don't think. But, you know, for me, like I had just gotten into like having Jordan sneakers, you know, when I was like graduating high school around that time. So like I loved seeing all the shoes that he wore while playing. Like I don't see anyone playing basketball in Jordans anymore. They're like a fashion statement, or they're something that people like cherish, don't even take out of the box, or wear when it's only like the nicest day possible outside. To see this dude's out here like wearing Red 11s, and it's like my favorite shoe ever, like out on the court, and I'm like, what are you doing to those shoes? But they're his shoes, you know. It's like, it's cool seeing like that sort of cultural phenomenon grow as it happens. Like I didn't get to live through it, so like I said, but seeing him wear all these really awesome shoes that you see everyone having now and how expensive they are, that part was really cool to me. And I just liked watching, like I said, all this stuff that I never got to see before and heard so much about. And the storytelling aspect of it, I want to comment on too, because people didn't like the back and forth. But to me, like I like when they talked about something or referenced it and then went back and explained it and add context to it. It's very Quentin Tarantino, but it was also like I liked having that background information. Like I knew he scored 63 against the Celtics in the playoffs when he was still really young, but I didn't know he had the time restraints. I didn't know he had that injury. Like there was so much detail in there that I didn't know. So as a whole, I really loved how they portrayed the story and that it wasn't just straight up chronological like that. But I think the shoes is probably my favorite part, just watching all of those different shoes come along as he grew from the 1 all the way up to like, what is it, 16 now? I love that.
Yeah, 16 or 17, yeah. Those shoes are pretty sweet. I mean, I wasn't a fan of the time jumping, but then I realized that's the way you have to tell the story.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely was entertaining. I lived through most of it, and I remember most of the games. The early '90s were a bit vague to me, but only because I was like 6 or 7. But so the '96 was the first one I fully watched, like in finals. I fully watched as a whole. Those Sonics teams are like one of the better teams I thought they faced. Going back to the '90s with Kemp and Peyton.
Another thing MJ lied about. He could say Gary Payton didn't do anything, but the numbers don't lie. Gary Payton played very well against MJ.
Yeah. Yeah, those numbers didn't lie, and just the way he just shitted on people was just comical. Jacob, what was your biggest favorite takeaway from this documentary here?
Just the nostalgia part of it, you know, most of it we knew, but it's just nice to have a little insight, I'll say, as an adult. You know, like back then it was, okay, it's just Jordan playing ball. We didn't really care about the backstories. But now when you get older, you start thinking, oh, man, this really happened. This is what they had to go through. You know, this is why this guy didn't play at this time. Just everything about it. And it goes back. We all knew Jordan was great. You know, I love watching. If he wasn't playing the Knicks, you know, I had no problem. Love watching him. But now you really see his greatness on the court. You know, it was pretty much his drive to become great. You didn't get that until my eyes, Kobe. That's, once again, Leon, I'll bring it back up. That's the closest to Jordan we're going to get. I mean, drive, mindset, game, that's it right there. But, and you can see how Jordan he revolutionized the game, which I love seeing, you know, with the sneakers, the commercials, and just everything, the endorsements. It was pretty amazing to see. You know, you guy from, you know, born in Brooklyn, moved to North Carolina, pretty much quiet kid, and look what he turned into. You know, the greatest of all time. You can't beat something like that. And just watching it over and really getting to understand why he was the way he was, it was amazing. It was good. It was, even though, you know, like you said, he was shitting on everybody, but everybody knew he was an asshole. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Look, when you're competing at that high a level, I mean, there's certain ways you can lead, and I mean, I'm not saying it's the best way to go about it, but at the same time, like you're working as hard as you possibly can, and you expect that from the guys on your team as well. You know, maybe sometimes you do need to intimidate them. I'm not saying punch them in the face, but I'm saying like challenge them and like get the best out of them. I think that people don't realize like you don't get the best out of yourself unless you push yourself. And I mean, Michael Jordan pushed himself and became just because he worked for it. You know, he didn't wake up and that didn't happen. You know, he didn't even play basketball until he was a senior in high school or something like that. He didn't play varsity until he was a senior. So like he wasn't this prodigy when he was born. He worked to get to that point. So to me, I think like, yeah, everyone hates how his leadership style, but life is hard. You know, when you grow up in the world and you have a job, like your boss isn't always going to be nice to you. You know, they expect you to be the best that you can be, and they don't want to hear anything other than that as an excuse. So I don't hate the way he pushed his teammates. I wouldn't have punched anyone in the face or anything, but I think that people don't like to get pushed. But at the end of the day, that's how it makes us better.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, it leads to something where he said Kobe is the closest thing to Michael that we had, which is true. And the nostalgia was something else that we also lived through, you know, reminiscing about the 90s teams, the players. You go back to the uniforms, take a look at yours, you know, those jerseys were sweet, the Wolves, the Hawks, those teams. I remember the Bullets jersey, and, you know, we had Rod Strickland and George Marathon were going into the 90s week. Randy, was there any players that you haven't seen in the documentary before that I guess would, decided, I might take a look at this guy?
Yeah, I think that obviously I know Charles Barkley is a Hall of Famer and one of the best players of all time, but I guess I didn't realize that he had that outside game and he had the sweet touch with his J. I always thought he was like an undersized rebounder who dominated the paint, which he did to his credit, but I didn't realize how versatile he was and how much he could run up and down the floor and how athletic he was. So I'm definitely going to check out some more Charles Barkley tape on that. And I never really watched a lot of Karl Malone. Karl Malone, and we can get to this, kind of like turns me off when I hear his name because of some other things he did in his life. But I kind of loved the way he played. I mean, he was an undersized power forward. I mean, he was only 6'9", but he was also like the strongest player in the league, and he had those gigantic palms where the basketball just looked like, a tennis ball in his hand. So I literally liked the way Karl Malone played. I like how he had an outside shot and he has a touch and he could still get physical, put the ball on the floor. I never realized that he could actually put the ball on his floor. Yeah, exactly. But I just loved watching, the Bulls play basketball. Like I watched that same system with the Lakers and the triangle offense. So I saw how it was run with what many people consider a lesser version of MJ and Kobe. So like I kind of got that aspect of it, but I liked seeing it without like the dominant center and Shaq. Like there's still very much a post-up game, but you didn't have the dominant big man in the middle. So I loved how, MJ still ran the offense despite being the guy, and how much Pippen controlled the pace of the games a lot of the time. I rewatched the entire Game 6 of the '98 finals, and Pippen is like his back is all banged up and he can't run up and down the court. But when he's in the game, he's not looking to shoot, but he's making great passes and he's making great reads and he's reposting and he's setting guys up here and there. Like the game isn't really played like that anymore. So I just loved watching that aspect of it. I never really got to enjoy and live through the Bulls to truly appreciate it. I guess to me, like I think the Warriors play the most purest and beautiful style of basketball right now. It's just different. So to me, like I love watching the Warriors. It doesn't matter who they're playing. Like even if they're in a blowout, like they play the game so clean and smooth, and it's so beautiful to watch. The Bulls to me are very much the same way.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Warriors, because of their prolific three-point shooting, the Lakers were that way back in the day with Showtime. They ran up and down the floor. And the Warriors of the early 90s with Run TMC, Don Nelson and those guys, they ran the floor and just shot up threes like it was nobody's business. Mullen, Mitch Richmond. And Matt brings up, how you doing, Matt? Brings up a pretty good point. The talent gap between Michael Jordan and Clyde Drexler. I remember Drexler on the Rockets. I remember him vaguely on the Blazers, but and he took that team to the finals in '92. Drexler was no slouch.
But he got worked.
He got worked. And come to find out, apparently the Knicks were very close to drafting him. But
yeah.
I forgot who they picked over him. And,
was it Kenny Walker? I can't remember.
I think it was Kenny Walker.
Something like that. If I get that right, I need a prize. But yeah, it's definitely, yeah, like I agree with Matt. The gap wasn't even close. It wasn't close, man. And these are the guys that, the Blazers kind of passed up. We got Drexler. We're good. We're good. We're okay.
And to me, and as someone who didn't live through that era and just knows stuff about, past, Drexler to me was a legend of the sport. The Glide. He had the cool nickname, and to me, he was a legend. But then you see how much better Michael Jordan was than him. And I think that they were kind of similar players for the most part. And I do want to watch more of Clyde. But, like, to me, like, just having not a lot of background knowledge, not like a lot of game film from Drexler, I did think he was a legend. I still think he was one of the game's greatest players. Probably a top 50 player of all time. But it just shows the gap. I mean, how badly he got beat up in that series. It really was palpable.
And in the 90s, this was a center-driven league. You look at those centers in the 90s, apparently you can take them by tiers with
yeah.
with Dream, Shaq, David Robinson, Ewing, Mutombo's in the next tier, Alonzo Mourning, Rick Smits. These were the land of the giants, and the Bulls never had a dominant center besides in the early with Bill Cartwright. But otherwise, they went in with a serviceable center and mid-range game these teams to death.
I mean, do you consider Rodman more of a power forward at that point then?
I do. See, and that's why I think like Horace Grant and Rodman were incredibly valued because they can go in there and bang with those guys and get rebounds. But Horace Grant had that mid-range jumper where you had to respect it. And not only were these centers like offensively gifted, they were among the defensive player of the year. They get 3-4 block shots a game. So,
seeing Prime Shaq too. Prime Shaq is unlike anyone else. Like maybe Prime Wilt would be the only one comparable. He's running the floor. Just unbelievable Shaq was. Especially in his Orlando days. Almost, incomparable to me.
Dominant.
I mean, Hakeem had the greatest footwork ever. And he still has that. And it just blows my mind that no one even looks at him and says, I want to have great footwork like that. Because you don't have big guys posting up like that anymore. But the overall footwork and fundamentals now are so bad that you watch Hakeem and you're just fascinated by how well he played the game and how he was able to use just basic fundamentals to get open and to make shots. I mean, Hakeem was so fun to watch.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Embiid is the closest one to Hakeem, but if he just stays on the floor, I think Embiid will be the closest one to it.
Yep. Another one, and this is one that I'm really disappointed in because I swear if he would have worked on his game a little bit more, Dwight Howard. Like, he's so frustrating because how good he was in Orlando. If he had just even a little jump hook, like I think he went to Hakeem's school and
Dwight Howard.
Yeah, like that. He had the body for it. Even like a little jump hook, just something. But I don't know. Just sometimes I think he didn't take it as seriously as he could have, because he basically got a long way off his skill, like off his body type and just raw athleticism. And
Matt makes a good point. I mean, Hakeem had a really soft touch. I mean, Dwight never had that sort of touch around the rim. He was always a physical power guy who, if he wasn't a dunk, it was basically a miss. So, Dwight was obviously a physical specimen, but he never had that, soft touch like Hakeem had.
Right. I compared Dwight to Alonzo Mourning. Yeah. Maybe like Alonzo Mourning had a little bit more of an offensive game.
Yeah, he had a jumper.
But I thought Dwight Howard was close to Mourning.
Yeah, that's fair. Definitely fair.
Ryan brings up a good point. If Dwight ever got along with Kobe, they would have been an awesome duo because you went, the power game with Shaq, the lob game. He was already a defensive presence. He just got in his own way.
I mean, Pau was a big part of that team too. I mean, him and Pau had good chemistry. Part of Dwight along with Kobe is that Kobe pushed him hard and he didn't like it. At the end of the day, Dwight didn't really want to work for it. We didn't want to work for it quite like everyone else. So.
Yeah, it brings back nostalgia. I'm glad we were able to look back at some of these players. And I know last week we touched a bit on the list that ESPN came out with, and we had some debate over it. So I believe that, the numbers, the players, they're a little bit way off. I figure maybe we in the group can get this week we're celebrating 90s week. Maybe next week can go in the 80s and get a clear look at these players and get a good sense of the list that, we can properly rank them.
Mm-hmm.
So, if everybody is down for it, maybe we can do the 80s week next week. And take a look at Magic and Bird and Dr. J, because they got Dr. J at like 15.
Yeah, they're really out of control.
Wow.
Out of control.
Yeah, I mean, I think the retro week, people love the retro week. I think the 90s is bringing back a lot of nostalgia for the group. And then I don't know how many older heads are going to get into the 80s, but I also think that people are basketball historians, and I think people appreciate that era. So I think we could get a lot of love with that too.
Absolutely. Matt brings up, can we go to Matt's question? He said, how would you guys feel with the Bulls' second three-peat versus the Spurs with Duncan and Robinson? Matt, that is a great one. I really think they could have. No, it's hard. It's really hard to say because they had their front court, but just everything else was just like. I think the Bulls still would have kind of worked them when you think about Jordan would have been the X factor. It's like everybody else, he would have been the X factor because really, who's going to stop him on the Spurs? That who is really going to do anything? Sean Elliott?
I have a hard time. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I always have thought that rebounding is the most important stat in basketball. And just with Robinson and Duncan, like, I don't know how the Bulls possess the ball. You know, if they miss a single shot, they won't have Rodman there to try to get offensive rebounds. Like, the Spurs are going to clean them up, and they're going to on the rim, and it's going to be hard for the Bulls to get the shots up that they normally would. It depends on what the moves they would have made. Like, if it was the same team as constructed and like Pippen was healthy, absolutely, it's an incredible series. But they were banged up, they were kind of old, they were tired. I mean, it's a strike season too, mind you, so it's a short season. So that might help the Bulls a little bit, but Duncan and Robinson, man, I don't know how the Bulls match up well with them.
I don't think they win because they would have lost to the Pacers if they grab an offensive rebound. Any offensive rebound.
That's true.
Shout out to my guy Rick Smits.
I mean, and they went to Rick Smits every possession for the last 8 minutes. It frustrated the hell out of me watching it. I'm like, you got Reggie. I mean, they just shut him down. It was frustrating to watch. I don't think the Bulls get past the Spurs. Hell, I don't even think the Bulls get past the Knicks or even the Heat.
Yeah, the Heat were pretty tough too. They had the nice little front court going. But man, yeah.
So who guards Duncan? That's what I want to know. Who guards Duncan? And that's.
I don't have an answer for him.
Yeah.
You gonna put coach on Duncan? Who's gonna guard Robinson? You know, like those are the things I'm thinking. Obviously they don't have an answer for Mike. They always don't have an answer for Mike, but I don't think the Bulls have an answer for that.
That's what I'm saying. It's harder because then Pippen was going to be, you get a healthy Pippen, and Rodman, he would have held his own. Like, you don't know, and this is a young. No,
Rodman was done.
Yeah, but this is a young Duncan. That's the thing. It's hard. You can't necessarily say which way it could have went. That's why I'm like so conflicted about it. It's so weird. But like I said, I see you guys' point of the Spurs, just bodying them and taking advantage of it. But then again, the experience of the Bulls. I don't know.
I don't see it happening.
I'm gonna have to disagree. I don't know.
So the Spurs. I mean, you're talking about what? Robert Horry's on that Spurs team, right?
No, I don't think so.
No, he's not. Okay. So as I was gonna say, he would.
Well, it depends on where Steve Kerr goes.
If that was the case, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's true because Kerr was. Yeah, that's a good point.
Which team is Kerr on? We got Sean Elliott. He'll undercut somebody. Matt and Ryan make pretty good names for the 80s. Moses Malone, rebounding king. I know the name. I got to see more of his game. I know he's a legend. And George Mikan. So those are pretty good names. We could get into that next week. Those are pretty good suggestions. Thanks. And Luke.
I mean, the 80s, you could argue the 80s is the most important era, the most important decade in basketball. So I think we definitely get a lot of love for that.
And throughout this documentary, there's been no mention of Luke. Like, totally forgotten. Just
Luke Longley?
By the wayside, yeah.
I mean, what the fuck did he do? I
mean, they aired that movie about him after the fact, but they did the Game 6, the movie on ESPN after the final episode.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously he's in the game. He's talked about quite a bit, but doesn't seem like he's that much impact player.
Just like with Tony, they ain't really. I mean,
I feel like Mike. It feels like he was replaceable.
Tony. Oh my God.
Yeah, they did him dirty too. I mean, they didn't really like. He was a big part of it, man. He would have been a star, like a legit star on anybody's team, like a kind of draws and Petrovic kind of guy. I mean, he would have been that guy. But he took on a pro player.
We've been asking everyone, do you think Tony Kukoc is a Hall of Famer?
No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean,
longevity.
I guess that. Yeah, I mean, in the NBA, he doesn't have a great resume. Overseas, I think he would have taken into consideration because it's the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you included that, he would have a case. But just based on NBA resume alone, I don't think so.
Hell no. Man, Ben Wallace might make it to the – I think Ben Wallace – they talk about Ben Wallace might make it to the Hall of Fame. If he makes it to the Hall of Fame, Tony Kukoc better make it because I'm not even kidding.
Hey, Ben Wallace is the most defensive player of the year award, so he won 6 of them things.
Hell, I don't care. That four damn points a game and 8 rebounds. Nah, hell no. Yes, he was a great defensive player, but
one of the best defensive players ever.
Absolutely.
But I think Matt is onto something here in the comment that Tony Kukoc was Dirk before Dirk, and I think the era has a lot to do with Tony Kukoc. Where if he played now, absolutely incredible value. Tony Kukoc would be one of the better big men in the league for sure. But I think that he was severely misused. But he also had a lot of value to the Bulls at the same time. It's crazy they didn't give him more offensive plays.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan makes another good point. Another 90s legend, Grant Hill.
Yes,
so listen, we're not going to get into that.
Shout out to Ryan.
We're going to just let that one slide.
No, we're not going to let that.
And I'm glad they brought up one player. This is way back in the beginning with Isaiah Thomas. I compared him to Kyrie, but those Pistons teams were much forgotten that they went back to back. And if you look in the 2000s, that 2004 Piston team is similar to that 90s team. Grit and grind. They're forgotten about because they're in between the Spurs, they're in between the Lakers, and the Pistons are totally forgotten. So Isaiah Thomas and Jordan, his nonsense when the audio finally came out that he didn't want him on the team, which we all knew to begin with. Now it's finally come to light. Isaiah Thomas deserves much more love than he's been given.
For sure.
I'm not,
Isaiah. I'm glad you bring it up. Isaiah's definitely a guy that I need to watch more of because, it seems to be the driving force of those bad boy Pistons teams. You hear a lot about Lambeer and Rodman and how tough they were and everything, but you don't have to hear about how Isaiah really was the driving force behind that whole team. So I really want to watch more games and watch specifically Isaiah.
Do that.
You'll
I definitely to me, he obviously didn't lack anything defensively, but he was the best offensive player on that team, and they obviously needed him to be successful. So I definitely need to check out more Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, and Joe Dumars is almost – well, I can't even say they're Stephen Clay because they're not even close. But
No. Joe Dumars could shoot, but
Isaiah was, went on to be a broadcaster later, and I remember Magic when he retired the first time and then came back in the '96 season. I mean, he was as big as a house, but
you know what hurts Isaiah Thomas from people from my generation too? And I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, that's cool,
Leon, but the fact that there's another Isaiah Thomas in the league right now that is kind of that had a good year, but he's kind of a scrub now doesn't help. But also, when I was growing up, Isaiah Thomas was the worst GM in the league for the Knicks. That kind of took away from anything that he did to a lot of us younger people. Unfortunately for me who didn't grow up, for me who didn't get to watch him play, I know him from being a terrible GM. And unfortunately, there's another guy with the same name who plays in the league now who is not very good.
I mean, listen, Isaiah can find talent. Him coaching is another story. I think he took Indiana to the playoffs I mean, Larry Bird was an executive of the year, which everyone forgot about. I forgot about it. Coach of the year, I think at one point. So watching that interaction between him and Michael after the playoff game 7 was
that interaction was the greatest with him and Bird after that series. I guess I didn't even realize Bird was the coach at that time, but the fact that they had that, Jordan Bird connection and he was the coach against Michael and Michael still talking all that shit afterwards. Just, I'm so glad they had that audio and the captioning was perfect. It's just F you like, it was so good. That was probably the thing that made me laugh the hardest of the whole thing, honestly.
Yeah, we got some. What you got?
No, what also I didn't really notice was the backstage kind of thing, because usually you don't see that now when players will wait for other players now and kind of congratulate them, 7-5, yeah, good game, appreciate it. Now you don't really see that. I thought that was interesting too. Like a few of them you saw, I think, what was it, Barkley and Jordan?
I know Malone went on the bus after the finals game. Malone and Stockton.
It was,
you don't see that.
They don't. Oh yeah, good game. Kiss my ass and call it a day. I would too. I would have went on the bus too. You fucking ended my damn second year in a row and you cost me a championship. I'm not slapping your damn hand. Nope. Call me whatever you want. Damn right, I'm a sore loser.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Yeah, I'm glad we got that documentary out the way. Looks like the NBA season may be coming closer to us than we thought. It's supposed to be going to Orlando as a possible return in mid-July. Talk of how to resume the season, whether to just jump into the playoffs or, have a play-in tournament. Lillard came out and said, if he doesn't have a chance of going to the playoffs, he's not even going to bother playing, which I agree with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if I think I might have found a way to have a play-in tournament and go into the playoffs. Because you figure you can't have these guys jump into the playoffs after having 2.5 months off. It's just not good basketball. Figure on average you need about 10 to 15 games to warm up and get everybody right. You can use that 10 to 15 games to determine playoff spots. They were talking of a 1-30 tournament, top 16 teams regardless of record, and we'll do it that way. The NHL has come back and had 24 teams in the playoffs. Baseball is talking of coming back. I'm going to share my screen. It's a bit convoluted. See what I got here. Hold on.
Come on with it.
Don't tell me. All right, hold on. Okay, so these are the records in the Eastern and Western Conference. The distance between the 7th and the 12th seed is 9.5. No, the 8th and the 9th, the 8th and the 12th spot is 9.5 games.
Zoom.
Oh, my bad. You know what? I'll just tell you. Because I
can see it now. I can see it a little bit better.
The Western Conference, the distance between the 8th and the 12th spot is 4 games. So,
man, they got a shot though. That would be interesting to see. But like you said, the 15 games and.
So what I suggested was you have everyone keep their same records, and so you have one playing 6, 2 playing 5, 3 play 4, 7 play 12, 8 play 11, 9 plays 10 in a kind of like a fluid schedule.
Yeah.
If I could determine 10 games, the records would fluctuate considering everyone is in the same bubble.
Yeah.
There's no need to travel. You can have.
That's true.
You can schedule back-to-backs. And depending on the record of that day, that will determine who your opponent is. The trouble you run into is the bottom feeders. You know, you can't have what incentive do they have to come back? And it would affect the lottery and the draft position. So I'm gonna do it again.
I think that's that's why the NHL did what they did with 24 teams. They just took out the worst teams and just said, we're not going to even bother because I know you don't want to do it either. So they just let all like the teams within playoff contention in there. I think the NBA could do something similar to that. Where Dame said, like, if they don't have a shot, he's not coming back. I think a lot of players would probably echo that.
Yeah.
I agree. But there's no way to have half the teams play, like, no, it's just not good basketball without.
Right back.
If you don't have a good majority of the teams. Granted, they won't be playing too much.
Yeah, I mean, so what? There's 30 teams in the NBA. You don't think they could just chop off the bottom 6 teams and just do 24 like the NHL? So what are the worst 6 teams in the NBA this year? The Warriors are obviously one because of the injury situation. The Knicks, I assume, because it's better than Knicks.
Actually, if they went 25 to 30, it's the Pistons, the Hawks, Warriors, Wolves, Pistons, Hawks, Warriors, Wolves, and there's 2 other teams that surprisingly the Knicks are not in there. So what I had thought was you would have 25 playing 30, which is regardless of conference. That's what a 3. And then have the remaining seed here with the higher seed getting a first game bye. And they play like a double elimination round robin. With the winner of that bracket getting a higher percentage of the lottery balls. Although the team with the worst overall record can't be guaranteed less than a 3rd spot.
See, that makes sense.
Yeah. That does make sense. Because you don't want to mess up
a little bubble where they still stay
too much. That's just in place.
Right. So you play that out. They, share a high percentage of lottery balls. Give them a little incentive. Plus, you have to throw a monetary incentive in there because they got to get a paycheck. Which is, I'm pretty sure most of these guys will be doing it for anyway. But at the 7 to 12.
Also, they would make money. The ratings would be insane.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you saw the ratings for The Last Dance. I mean, people are just itching for sports right now. Any sport whatever sport that comes back first, they're going to see it. So, sure. I mean, even if they offered some sort of benefit from that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what they'll come up with. I mean, this was quite. I had to go over this like 2 or 3 times to try to figure out how to do it. But I mean, I kind of like the idea, but I could also see them doing the NHL route and just chopping off the bottom 6.
It seems a little complicated, but then when you broke it down, it feels less complicated to me. I don't know what the NBA is planning on doing. I know that like the Disney resort is like the spot that they want to do this remotely, so that way they can quarantine everyone. Disney World is obviously big enough to hold all the teams and has enough facilities and all those things. The Disney now is that they are starting to reopen in July. So they might have that part to worry about. But if they like just took one of the parks and said this is closed off for the NBA, I know Florida is going to start letting people in at some point coming up here, so maybe that won't have any effect. But whatever they do, they can easily do back-to-backs. They can easily play multiple games in a row. Like, there's no travel. You're not going to be allowed to leave. You're going to be all right there. So whatever plan they come up with, I trust Adam Silver more than any other commissioner in any sport to figure this out and do this the right way. So I think the NBA I'm more confident in than most other sports at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, you can schedule it out like they do in the March Madness, where you can have a game start at 12 and run that all day.
Oh, that'd be so awesome.
Oh, yeah, it would.
That would be so sick.
With so many teams and so many arenas, I'm pretty sure that would be the possibility. You know, and obviously it'd be something to watch all day, and you know, finally get some live sports on here, because I'm sorry, watching.
So when do you think they would have to be done by? You know, like I think about, you know, the next season. Do you think that there is like a hard cutoff of when the season needs to end, or do you think that they go till whenever and just start the season up on Christmas like everyone tells them to do anyway?
I think they will end, if not around Labor Day.
Yeah.
Probably a week or so after.
You have to cut it.
Okay.
You definitely got to cut it middle of September at least, because they got to be able to, you know, rest up a little bit, do what they got to do. You know, plus also you got to get the lottery done. You know?
Yeah.
And they said something about, what, September?
Yeah. They could push that back into October if middle of October if need be.
And then the draft. Lottery.
I think they have to be done before football starts, because I think they're going to be, you know, severely impacted by the NFL. I don't think the NFL at this point is planning on any sort of delay, which, you know, obviously could change. But, you know, the NBA, same with baseball and hockey, they have a whole opportunity to dominate the summer right now until football starts. I think they can get away with doing the lottery and the draft, you know, in that time, and I think they'll be fine. But I think you have to be done. If you're done by September, you could start the season on Christmas Day and then go until August next year, and then that should be the season length anyway, if you ask me. And then maybe they do make that change.
Oh, yeah. And that would be kind of cool to see the lottery and then the draft, like, kind of piggyback each other. Like, you know how you have that little gap in between the lottery and then the draft?
Yeah.
Lottery won't be. Boom, draft next week. That would be something. Just to see, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and Ryan brings up a good point. They have to plan on stopping it again, which is true.
Yep.
You know, if they start up, which I hear they won't stop. If one player gets infected, they'll just isolate him and continue to keep on going. And with many of the states,
and also if they are isolated. Sorry, Leon. Again, I apologize.
No, it's fine.
If they are isolated in the spot like Florida, they're not going to stop again. I don't believe. I think that if everyone is already quarantined, and if one guy does get it, like you said, that person will just have to stay away, and they will just keep on rolling with things. But I mean, none of us can predict the future and what's going to. I think they would probably have a plan in place for that.
I'm also a big proponent of them starting the next season around Christmas. I think that's something that's going to have some legs. If this, you know, happens to work out, I think they will eventually just push the season back and start Christmas, because nobody watches basketball until then anyway. Plus, you don't have to compete with the NFL, because that's what 5 or 6 weeks you have to compete with. Monday night football, Thursday night football. Pretty sure it's going to be Saturday night football. So I think they'll eventually.
At that point too, like it's basically just the playoffs at that point, right? So it's like you can avoid having games on the same day as playoff games. You know, this is obviously if the NFL playoffs continue as scheduled, but those games are typically just on Saturday and Sundays. So you could just schedule, games during the week and maybe Friday night, and maybe take the L on Saturday and Sunday, at least until the Super Bowl is over with.
Yeah. I think I have a feeling they're probably going to go the NHL route. a lot of people are going to be pissed, especially Lillard. I mean, well, no, he would get in, I think, but I probably wouldn't be opposed to a 24-team playoff. But
no, that'd be sick.
But I also don't see them starting up right away, so it's a bit tricky. Hockey, you can do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited to see what happens.
Oh yeah, for sure.
On TV.
For sure. Can't wait.
Tell me about it, man. I'm ready to shoot a basketball. You know, I'm think I might be losing my skills real soon.
What skill? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Damn.
Oh no.
All right. No, that was a layup. That was a layup.
That was a George Gervin finger roll. But yeah, I can't. We need something, man. This is getting crazy.
Yeah,
I love the watch parties and stuff. I love the nostalgia of the old games, but damn.
Yeah, we need some live stuff, man. And Ryan and Steve, thanks for joining in.
Definitely.
They made some good points. You know, we need 3 major sports on nonstop. Hopefully, baseball gets their act together.
Well,
college football, well, I might actually watch a bit more of it.
You should, man. It's fun. It's fun to watch, man.
Nah, Vince Young ruined it for me.
Ah, man. I had the GOAT and Tebow in college, so it was fun. In college, like I said, in college. We're not going to talk about after. I didn't give a shit what he did after. But no.
Reggie Bush was better.
Yeah. Reggie Bush was the man. I give him that. Cheated, but got caught. Tebow was godly, all right?
Oh, I understand that.
No, Reggie Bush was the man, though. He was the freaking joystick.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun, here with the nostalgia. Maybe, I guess, the next episode we can get into the 80s, and maybe I'll think about bringing a game show back. I'll think about it. I see that look on. Yeah, I see the look on Randy's face. He sees the buzzer. Flashback.
I could not have hit that buzzer any quicker than I did. I'm still mad about that.
Well, you know what? What's funny about that? I made another game that's similar to Wheel of Fortune, so I got some tricks up my sleeve. If anybody wants to.
I might be into that.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was great.
Yeah, it's been fun talking nostalgia. And Jordan, you guys have any parting words for me in this show?
We need sports back ASAP. Once again, it was great talking to you, Randy. Thank you for coming on. Very much appreciated. We are my main man. Brooklyn ain't shit. Sorry, made me embarrassed to be from Brooklyn. But anyway, it was definitely fun. I'm gonna do it again. Thank you guys for tuning in. Ryan, Matt, Steve, thank you for keeping the video chat live a little bit. Appreciate that. And give us something, man.
Yeah, man. Randy, what you got for us?
I appreciate you guys having me on. I was just going to say I appreciate you guys having me on. I always love coming on and talking basketball with you guys. It's good to talk about something new and something that was fun. It was really moved up the documentary for all of us to enjoy. I hope everyone at home is staying safe, staying healthy. As right now, I guess that is the most important thing. As much as we want sports back, it is essential to our daily life that we are healthy and we are staying safe. So I hope all you guys are doing the right thing and staying safe. But I also have a programming note for all of you. As you know, I am the co-host of what is formerly known as the Deep Thirds Football Podcast over in Football Life. But now there is a rebranding. It is now called Football Life Presents The Audible. So Matt and I decided to do a little rebranding of the show. And as we move forward with our programming, we're going to have a show next Friday edition of that show for you guys. We're going to have the latest news around football, obviously, and we're going to have a lot of good discussion around that next Friday. Not this Friday, but next Friday. So we wanted to come on here and announce that there has been a name change. Same guys, but just a name change, something that we wanted to spice up a little bit. Like I said, again, I love coming on here talking basketball with you guys. I don't know anyone who knows more about basketball than the two of you, so it's always a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you, man.
Audible. I like it.
Audible, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you got Tom Brady splitting his pants. I don't need to see that, man.
It was something. I'll take it, you know?
I won't. I've seen him enough. Fuck off my TV.
On that note, man, thank you guys again for your time and your dedication. Thank you guys for tuning in, and see you next time. And until then, ball out.
Sure.